Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Indecom says 126 persons killed by security forces from January 1 to November 30 this year. Groundsman at Seaforth High School killed by gunmen this morning. And later in sports, West Indies bowlers struggle once again in Australia. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pula and here are the details. A domestic dispute in Westmoreland has left a community in shock. As you will hear in this report, relatives and community members say there were no warning signs ahead of this incident.
A community once crime-free is now trying to come to terms with a gruesome murder-suicide. The community of Senior on the border of Westmoreland and St. James was sent into a frenzy following the gruesome discovery of 42-year-old dressmaker Alicia Smithson. Information received by our news team is that the discovery was made by residents Tuesday afternoon. An uncle of the deceased, Raymond Headley, says he was contacted by a relative overseas who was trying to get in touch with Miss Smithson. However, after numerous failed attempts by the relative, he was contacted. He told us he was busy at the time and asked a cousin to check on her.
So in call back, he said, boy, I don't get no response. Then me see one of my sister, church sister calling me now. And she said, boy, she saw the grill half open, the locks and the table. So me said, go inside. Him say, nah, go in there. So he go down the road, get some guys and then go in there. Then see my niece, hands bound, and a sheet tie around her neck. And so by the time I reach now, me see that as well. And I went round the back just to look. And then I saw the young man hanging from a piece of rope.
He says his niece was quiet and did not want to make trouble. Hence, he says he's still baffled as to what could have led to such a tragic murder.
Right now, I'm at loss. I'm at loss. I just don't know what to say. The most I can do is cry every now and again.
He says there were no signs that things were bad in the relationship they shared.
This young man, like, he would come in like on a Saturday evening, and Monday morning, while I'm getting ready to leave, I would see him coming out the lane to get a taxi to go. So I mean, I don't have any information, nothing. My niece never complained about anything. So I mean, it just come as a surprise. Everybody shocked and surprised and disappointed. Just about everything. We just can't believe.
This is the second deadly domestic dispute in Westmoreland over the past week. O'Shade Masters, TVJ News.
Gunmen shot and killed a man in Seaforth, St. Thomas early this morning. The dead man has been identified as 41-year-old Leon White, also known as Junior Blacks. According to reports, Mr. White was attacked minutes after 1 this morning at his home in Captureland, Seaforth. He was a groundsman at the Seaforth High School. Principal at the school, Calbert Thomas, says he will be missed.
We really lost a very good worker, Leon White. He's one of those groundsmen who you could count on at any time to do, just about every and anything. He's always respectful to administration. He get along well with the children, get along well with the teachers, get along well with his other colleagues who works on the ground.
Mr. Thomas also said the school family is deeply affected and is trying to cope with the loss.
In spite of that, it's exam time, and we just want to let you know that school is in session, and most of those people who are affected greatly based on family members. We have to take some students out of the exam because they are related to Mr. White and so on, and other members from the guidance department and other members from other area who are related, you know, have to be getting counsel.
The Independent Commission of Investigations, Indecom, has indicated that more than 120 persons have been killed by the security forces between January 1 and November 30 this year. The commission presented its quarterly report at an online press conference this morning.
According to Indecom, which investigates complaints against and shootings by the security forces, there have been 126 civilian deaths at the hands of security officers up to November 30 this year. Compared to the same period in 2021, that's a 2% increase. For Indecom Commissioner Hugh Faulkner, the numbers for December are also increasing.
So far, for December 2022, we have recorded 4 fatalities. The latest being this morning in Central Village, St. Catherine.
Mr. Faulkner explained that while 609 of the 668 complaints presented to them were unsubstantiated, 46 cases involving 68 officers were recommended for disciplinary action.
9 cases recommended that the officers be charged, and this involved 10 officers. There were 4 cases involving 5 officers where recommendation was made for the officers to be charged and for disciplinary process to be pursued. For the period January 1, 2022 to September 30, 2022, 12 officers were charged from Indecom investigations.
The report also raised concern about police shootings where there was no evidence that the victim was shooting at the cops. Indecom says investigations indicate that no gun was recovered in 36% of these cases.
Of the 211, 20 were killed and 28 injured, from whom our investigation so far revealed no gun or no weapon recovered. "27 of the 211 who were killed or injured, no gun was recovered, but other weapon was reported as being recovered."
Herman Green, TVJ News.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has impressed upon Jamaica's international partners the threat criminal gangs and organized transnational crime networks pose to national security, human rights and democracy. Mr. Holness attended a Congressional Parliamentary Intelligence Security Forum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. He said the threat is even more urgent for small developing states where gangs have a greater capacity to capture the state.
For Jamaica, some of what we have discussed would be pertinent, but there are other areas which I would want to bring to the attention of this forum. For example, the growing and evolving nature of transnational gangs. They are moving from just mere street-level criminal activity into cyber, into controlling resources, and seeking even to take over countries. And there are examples of that. We see Haiti, for example, in this region. The challenge is, once they have undermined the state, they create a safe haven for any kind of criminal activity, and they become a threat for entire regions.
A Supreme Court judge is calling on Jamaicans to apply emotional intelligence when dealing with persons who display aggressive behaviors. Puny judge in the Supreme Court, Justice C. Brown Beckford, laments that Jamaica has a lot of angry people. More in this report. A video doing the rounds on social media showing a student at Homestead Primary in St. Catherine throwing stones into a classroom and a teacher preventing him from entering the classroom has caught the attention of a puny judge in the Supreme Court, Justice C. Brown Beckford.
No, the intent to do harm was clear. Even on the video, the intensity of his actions. You saw an adult, apparently a teacher, that the utter lack of regard for the person that was there. And what came to me was, what hurt this child? As I thought about the gentleman with my dad, what has caused that anger?
Justice Brown Beckford says she left some of the unanswered questions to the experts like a psychiatrist. However, what is obvious is that the society is filled with too much anger.
When you accidentally bounce someone in the store, when you are exiting a room, you are pushed aside without a buyer leave from the person who is coming in. The aggressive windscreen wiper. And I'm sure if I ask you, you all have many examples. There is just aggressive behavior all around, from males, from females, from adults, and from children.
Justice Brown Beckford says when persons find themselves in confrontation with aggressors, emotional intelligence should be applied. She says this is the best approach to avoid an escalation of the issue.
We usually say, don't fight fire with fire. This will show the person that you hear what they are saying, that you're understanding their point of view, and you are reaffirming that their feelings are valid. I understand this to say, treat them humanely. That you see them, that you hear them.
Justice Brown Beckford was speaking at a Justices of the Peace function in St. Anne recently, where 41 new JPs were sworn in. A man is in custody in connection to the theft of copper cables belonging to telecommunications company Flow on Hillcrest Avenue, St. Andrew this morning. The cables between 250 and 300 meters are valued at approximately $300 million. Inspector Earl Grant is the station commander for the Matilda's Corner Police Station.
So the team responded and intercepted a truck at the corner of Hillcrest Avenue and Oakfield Avenue. One man was seen loading some cables, what appears to be cables about 2.5 to 3 inches thick inside a truck. He was asked whether he were in the cell, and he was unable to give any verification of such. So as a result, the police pressed him further and found out that he was in fact stealing the cables.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
Caribbean Dreams Foods Limited, the newly created manufacturing division of Jamaican Teas Limited, will be spun off by March 2023. The new company was expected to become operational around March of this year, but the timeline shifted as Jam Teas worked to secure approval for spin-off operation to manufacture the Tetley brand, which Jam Teas is licensed by its American owners to produce. According to Jamaican Teas CEO John Mafood, the company already got approval from the owners, but they are waiting on approvals from the Jamaican authorities to begin export, among other things. In business overseas, computer chip giant TSMC says it will more than triple its investment in a giant US plant to $40 billion. It is one of the largest foreign investments in American history. The announcement came as President Joe Biden and the Taiwan-based firm's boss opened the factory in Arizona. The Biden administration is pushing ahead with plans to bring onshore production of key components in everything from phones to military jets. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm O'Shane Masters.
Now time for the top regional and international stories. Here is O'Shane Masters once again.
In the region, Roosevelt Skerritt was sworn in on Wednesday as Dominica's Prime Minister for a record 6th consecutive term. During his swearing-in ceremony, he promised to forge ahead with the reset plans that provided the blueprint for calling a general election 2 years ahead of the constitutional deadline. Mr. Skerritt led his ruling Dominica Labour Party to a convincing 19-2 majority in the 21-seat parliament in an election that had been boycotted by the main opposition political parties. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has approved $113 million under a 36-month extended fund facility program for Barbados. $189 million have also been provided through the Resilient and Sustainability Fund to maintain and strengthen macroeconomic stability, support the structural reform agenda, and increase resilience to climate change in the country. And further afield, Dina Boulatire became Peru's first female president on Wednesday, capping off a dramatic day which saw her predecessor arrested for the alleged crime of rebellion and impeached by lawmakers. Boulatire, the country's former vice president, was sworn into the top job at Congress to become Peru's 6th president in under 5 years. The ceremony took place hours after a majority of 101 members in the 130-person legislative body voted to impeach former leader Pedro Castillo. It comes mere hours after Castillo had announced plans to dissolve Congress and install an emergency government ahead of the looming impeachment vote by lawmakers, which Peru's ombudsman described as an attempted coup d'etat. And that's it for the top regional and international stories. I'm Shane Masters.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jermaine Brown.